Welcome to Squatch-D TV, where the truth is first before all else. Join your hosts, veteran investigator, TV personality, and author Steve Kulls, and from the Kentucky Bigfoot Research Project and the Kentucky Fried Fixes channel, Chris Bennett. Sit back and prepare to take yourself on a journey with the longest-running Bigfoot podcast, Squatch-D TV. Here are your hosts, Steve and Chris.
And good evening, cyberspace. Welcome to Squatch-D TV for the first time this year. For today's date, January 5th, 2025. I'm your host, your guide, the Squatch Detective, Steve Kulls, along with my good friend, my frozen co-host, Mr. Chris Bennett.
Hey, Steve, man, it's good to see you. Yeah, we've got an ice storm here where I'm at in Kentucky. It's had a little dusting of snow early this morning, and then ice, and the trees,
ice, baby.
The trees look beautiful. It's like wonderful, beautiful layer of ice on everything. But unfortunately, if it keeps that up, we're going to have a lot of power outages. So
yep.
I've been trying to make some preparations for the generator in case that does happen again, because usually, we'll be down 2 or 3 days if there's an ice outage.
Right.
Power. But we got it a lot better than a lot of people. I know a lot of people are like digging out under snow.
Yeah, well, I saw Matt had a picture on Facebook today. Oh, looking at my first snowstorm, and there was inches of snow in the ground, and we got a dusting today. I mean, that's all we got. I mean, we're kind of in a good, we're getting some with lake effect snow. And what lake effect snow is that, we have snow that comes off of Lake Ontario and Lake Erie that kind of coats. That's the reason why Buffalo gets it so bad, and Rochester, and us not so much. And it was kind of really weird last week, because when I went to work, I work about, as the crow flies, maybe about 15 miles from here, south, right? And the band of lake effect snow hit that whole entire area. I got out of work. I got back to work. There was 4 inches of snow on the ground. I go 15 miles north, and there's just a dusting.
Yeah.
Right.
The snow is not bad. I'll drive in the snow. That's no problem. But when they get ice on the road, that's it, man. I shut down. That's it. I'm not going nowhere. Right now, I'm drinking iced tea tonight because we're out of my favorite beverage, ski. And even though the store is only like 1 mile down the street, I'm not going out there because, next thing you know, you get out there on that highway on that ice, and you'll be spinning around in circles and off in the ditch.
Well, let's see. For those who are new around here, and we do have a bunch of new people on, as we've had a bunch of new subscribers this week.
Yeah.
This is the show where we talk Bigfoot, but we have a lot of fun doing it. And sometimes we have guests on, sometimes we don't. Sometimes we do evidence analysis. Sometimes we do other things as well. We do some educational stuff as well. This is not your traditional Bigfoot, boring talk show anymore. We've kind of changed gears a little bit, kind of evolved a bit. So we're not just having a guest every week, and it's the same thing every week. You try to give you something new every week and keep people guessing, which is always fun.
Yeah, it's kind of tough, especially when you're talking about new sightings when there are none. And it's kind of boring to bring up, like, the old stuff, like, the Patterson Gimlin and stuff. Yeah, that would create a debate. I mean, but how many times are we going to do that now?
Every once in a while, it's good to have. So let's do our roll call, Chris.
Oh, yeah.
And first in tonight was Danny Weeks. Hello, Danny. Walter Kroll. Hello, how are you? Roy Longley, good to see you, my friend. Mick with the strep throat. Mick, I hope you're feeling better.
Oh, Mick,
Pete
man,
H. Hello, Pete. Karen Fisher, how you doing? Mitch Hargrove. Sharon, hello. Jen, the bouncer, Jen, and her office assistant, Baron. Hello. Dana Ranchrum, good to see you, Dana.
Okay.
Traveling with Jim, my good buddy Jim Lansing. How are you, Jim? Good to see you. Just Steve, hello, hello. Is Bigfoot real? Yes, yes, it is. Don Come Out Jr., hello. And I do get to check your vocals you sent me too. Sorry, I've been working a lot of overtime lately, so it's been a little bit of a stretch for doing a lot of things. The Beatron in the house, Sandra Piper, Boris Kahn, Goonie Goo Goo. Grant Rasha, good to see you, Grant. Hello, hello to you. Of course, I saw Grasshopper in there. There's the Susie Monster, the Bat Mom, Tessa. Hello, how are you? Who else? Lori Gibbs, good to see you, Lori. Arthur Watch in the house. Arthur. Martin McTighe. Hello, Martin. Good to see you. Martin. And it looks like we may be at the back. Very scripted. Steve wandered in, and we had Grasshopper already too. So there we are.
I think that's it. I didn't get lost this time. I believe you got everybody.
Yep.
And hello to all the lurkers out there. We appreciate you guys. Come in and step in and say hi every now and then if you want to. But if you don't, that's okay. I understand.
So 2024 was quite the really not a big year for Bigfoot.
Well, no, not really.
Not a lot of great sightings, although we did have that one gentleman from out in California, Northern California, where he was sleeping in his vehicle.
Yeah, that was the best one of the year, I thought.
It
was a good one.
Yep. And for those who haven't seen that episode, check it out. It's a few months ago. I think it was like September, October. We did that episode.
Yeah. And he did some follow-up videos too on his channel where he went back to the area and looked around.
Yep. So check that out too if you're so inclined. Yeah, it was really, and then it ended on that sour note with the death of the two gentlemen there.
Yeah.
Which we're still having a hard time getting their actual names. I mean, I've been scouring obituaries, haven't seen anything. And again, this is a really hard time of year to you pass or you're found on Christmas morning or Christmas Eve. It's kind of tough to have a funeral within that time constraint.
That is not going to be good for the family at all. And, it's a shame. But the fact is, these kind of things happen every year around Christmas.
Yep.
And, unfortunately, these guys just, expired from exposure because they were out looking for Bigfoot. Well,
like when my mom had her fatal fall, which started her downward spiral, that was on December 17th of 2013. And she passed away 11 years ago today. So yeah, I mean, they wanted me to we don't want to assist in her breathing anymore. I said, well, I'm not doing anything till after the holidays. You're be crazy if you think I'm going to do it during the holiday week,
Right.
between the week between Christmas to New Year's. Do I really want to sour that with her passing to the kids and the grandkids and stuff like that? No. So
not a good time,
No.
to be checking out.
No.
Of course, a lot of times we don't have that choice.
But
when you gotta go, you gotta go. But
at the same time, and I do not mean to diminish the family's grief or loss, but at the same time, it turns around and gives us Bigfoot researchers more crap too, because, the crazy Bigfoot researchers are out there doing stuff, have no idea what they're doing. And when, Mick, as I said, no, they have not.
But it's bad. But these things happen, and whatever the reason when people used to go out into the wilderness during rough weather like they were having. It happens. Doesn't matter if they were out looking for Bigfoot or looking for a Christmas tree. It happens.
Right. It kind of makes me wonder, and stories do not make a good Bigfoot year. What we didn't see was any new groundbreaking evidence. We didn't even see any marvelous track finds this year. We didn't see, we saw our typical, oh, look at this tree break, look at this tree bend, stuff that's can be attributed to 10,000 other things other than Bigfoot.
Yeah.
We didn't see any great hoaxes this year either, which is that's actually a good thing. We saw a couple of, minor attempts and stuff like that never really gained as much notoriety. And it almost seems like to me that, 15 years ago, they put a Bigfoot hoax out there, and literally it got a lot of traction.
Yeah.
And I don't know why. Maybe it's the forums, because everybody was on forums. Now nobody's on forums, or you have your groups that are still on forums. Nobody really cares.
Yeah.
Right? Everybody is so sectionalized now. You have groups in Facebook that don't look anywhere else other than their own bubble.
Right. Well, you got the Bigfoot forums, in which, over there, everything's Bigfoot. Okay, then you got the Bigfoot forums that are on the International Skeptics forum, and everything over there is denial. All Bigfoot doesn't exist. So it's just one extreme to the other. There's really not a good conversation at either one of them.
I think Tessa said it the best there. And we had our run-ins with those in the first quarter of the year. A guy named Puke and another guy that thinks he's God's gift to squatching, and is Mr. Clickbait. Mr. Clickbait and Puke.
Well, we did have a incident down in Tennessee. A couple of hunters got lost, and they were found by the use of with the use of drone technology. They had drones using thermal imaging, and they were able to locate these guys and get them out of the woods. So, that was a big plus. That could have ended very badly for those guys. But
truthfully,
modern technology, they were brought home.
Nick is bringing up Thinker Thunker. Listen, I you know what? Other than his thin-skinned attempt at trying to shut down criticism by means of a threat, which I wrote him back and he did not respond to, but he didn't act upon the threat or try to act upon the threat. I have no issues with Thinker Thunker, other than at times he is wrong. There's times he's right, and there's times he's done some good work. But like half of the stuff that he looks at, I tend to disagree with him because of a lot of different factors. But I have no ill will towards him. Who I have ill will towards is the people that attacked this channel. And they don't want to ever run into me in person. They do not. Because what they did was uncalled for. What they did was cowardly. And that was the beginning of 2024. So 2024 started quite uphill. And in the midst of all that horse pucky going on, I was also dealing with a neck injury. And that didn't help. Chris can tell you how frustrated I was off camera. Right. And it did bleed over occasionally onto air. Last year.
It's hard to be in a good mood when you're in pain. It really is.
Not only that, and you're dealing with all the bullstein going around behind the scenes.
Yes.
And I got to say, our service provider here at YouTube was not very helpful. Their customer service has an IQ of a grapefruit.
Well, I think a lot of it is just, computer stuff. They probably have bots to handle.
No, you know what it is they're all scripted. That if this happens, you clip and paste this. If that happens, you clip and paste that. And they do nothing. YouTube customer service does nothing. Zip, zero, zing. Nothing. They can't do nothing. They say they always say, "Oh, give me a few minutes to look into something." And then what they do is they get their little clips ready to go to send to you is what they're doing, right? They don't really check on anything because they're powerless little minions that answer the phones, for whatever,
Oh, well.
So there are challenges there. There are challenges why this channel at times is shadow banned. And we know this channel has been shadow banned at times. So maybe they don't like, that we're not the most positive people in the world, but we actually are. When we bust out a hoax, that's a positive thing. That's not a negative thing.
Yeah. And, I am first in line to cheerlead a credible sighting, like the man from California we had.
Correct. Yep.
Not too long ago.
Exactly. Or a credible piece of evidence like the thermal image from the two fellas from West Virginia, Wild and Weird, Joe Perdue and his partner there. Great stuff. We had gotten into a discussion. I was on Sasquatch Watch Radio last Monday, and we had gotten into a discussion. Everybody was starting to say, well, we really like the Freeman film, yada, yada, yada. And that was something I was very for. But then I had to turn around and say, wait a minute. I don't think anybody's ever seen the first film. And a lot of people haven't. We haven't shown that here yet. We're going to do something in the future about it. Right now, I just don't feel like in the mood to do it, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Because it's not the most positive thing in the world, and it's really nothing concrete, but it's disturbing to me because the first film looks like a dry run of the second film almost. And the gait of the creature in the film, even though it was on different terrain, was the same type of gait as the one in the first film. The way it just kind of lurches off. All right. And you're doing it on the chair as I'm talking about it. Chris saw what I was talking about because I did show the video to Chris.
Yeah.
And I was like, I think.
Well, I've always had questions about that film. I can either like it or dislike it, and I never really have liked that one.
Right. And that's kind of a downer. If a lot of people don't know that don't realize that he actually allegedly filmed one 3 months before the famous one. Right? Why didn't the first one ever make it into the public eye? Why was the first one never mentioned?
Yep. That's a problem.
And when you have a show like Legend Meets Science, which featured the Freeman film as one of these pieces of film evidence, did Doug even know there was a first film at that point in time?
Probably not.
Probably not.
But, hey, for 2024 in March, I thought, we were going to have some good stuff going on here in Kentucky because I ran across some signs of a little activity in one of my core areas. And I thought, oh, man, this is great. Hadn't seen anything like this in years. And then nothing. No sightings. No other sign.
Joe Perdue and his partner down at Wild and Weird, West Virginia, they are two awesome guys, really good guys.
Yeah.
Like them a lot. Got to hang out with them a bit last August in Hocking Hills, and it was a good time. So hoping that we can do it again this year. So we'll see.
He says maybe Bigfoot died off from climate change. I don't think so.
Yeah, Ron Lanigan, I believe, is his partner's name. That's right, Ron. But yeah, so 2024, I'm kind of glad it's behind us a bit. Wasn't the worst year in the world. Wasn't necessarily the best either. And it's kind of funny because I on my new job, I do drive by my old job a couple of times a week.
Yeah.
One of my stations, and it's almost like I miss it. And then I think to myself, why the hell am I missing it? It was such a miserable job. Last October, not last October, geez, last October would have been just a few months ago. But October of 23, when I had started going back into EMS, the amount of cynicism and people just is amazing. It's completely a different animal, and I understand why, because dynamically here, things have changed, and you look at everything in life circles. So it's applicable in certain areas of life, can be applicable to this. And I had gotten into a conversation with Big G today, actually, about, why some people receive this channel or myself negatively.
Mm-hmm.
Negatively. You can tell I'm talking a little slower than I usually do. And part of that is what is the number one, people I ask all the time, what is the number one word in religion? What is the number one factor in religion? Let's just break this down a little bit. What is the word we're looking for? What's the number one word in religion?
Oh, it's faith. Faith is the number one word.
Or would also what's another word for faith?
Belief.
Beautiful. Bingo. You got it. See, Chris and I think alike. We've been hanging so long together, he kind of gets on my wavelength there. So the biggest word in any type of religion is belief. And the majority of people in the Bigfoot community operate on belief. Yeah.
I think all of them, Mick, pretty much operate on belief and faith.
Right. So, but the majority, and this is how I explain them, is that the majority of the Bigfoot world is, the people out there, probably a good 75% of them operate on belief or faith that Bigfoot exists, right?
Right.
So it's kind of similar to a religion. It's part of incorporated into a belief system. And then they watch stuff that's not so true, or they embellish. And then you have a show like this one, which still believes in Bigfoot. Of course, ours isn't based upon necessary belief. I've had 2 sightings. You've had sightings.
Not based on faith.
So ours is not based on faith. It's based on what was presented to us in the field, which is the minority of the people in the Bigfoot community. And what happens is it doesn't matter if you take a piece of that and say, well, that's not true, and this is the reason why, or this video is not real, and this is the reason why. People have a hard time disseminating or discerning from what I'm saying versus what I mean. What I'm saying is Bigfoot is the real thing. But what I'm trying to tell you is that this particular incident or this particular section here is not the truth for X, Y, and Z. And that gets them so upset and becomes an enemy, although we believe in the same thing. Kind of get what I'm saying there?
Yeah.
So that's one of the key factors that affects shows that want to expose the truth. And then we, of course, we have the Hollywood contingent, which does not want to expose the truth. The truth is boring. We want to keep people in suspense. We want people to keep tuning in.
Right.
And that's that too, I have an issue. But if you don't think people are interested in the truth, I've got a couple of graphics, and that was last year's views on pie chart level compared. And as you can see how this channel is growing.
Yeah.
It's not getting smaller, it's growing.
So, I think it's just a matter of time that everybody's going to be interested in the truth.
Right. And there's our watch hours comparison. Yeah. So,
oh.
I don't know what the heck happened there, Chris. I'm still not knowing why that's not. There we go.
Yeah, I agree, Danny. Danny said he doesn't like to use the word belief. Sounds too faith-based. That's true. Yep. But until you actually see one, what do you operate on? Well, you got to operate on your own beliefs that based on what evidence you may have experienced.
When people ask that question, do you believe in Bigfoot? Well, believing is part of belief. It's a direct verb off the noun. So that is a huge takeaway there.
Well, the skeptics get me because they've got this whole big blowhard thing like Bigfoot doesn't exist. Oh yeah, well, okay, well, yeah, Bigfoot does exist. And just because you haven't seen it yet doesn't mean it doesn't exist. It doesn't exist in your mind because you haven't seen it yet.
Well, you say here's the issue is they say I can say Bigfoot exists, but I have my own proof. I've had my own sightings, right? They can say Bigfoot doesn't exist, but they have no proof to that. Only their belief, right? Based upon their interpretation of said evidences over the years.
Yes.
Right. Is it going to take more evidence? Absolutely. And that's the argument we always get into is what's it going to take? What's it going to do? I don't know. I'm not a scientist. Never been, never will be. I am an investigator. My job is to collect evidence forensically and send it off for analysis. And that's where my job ends.
Well, on a positive note for 2025, I did have a little contact with Matt Larson, which is now Central. I think it's going to be Central Kentucky Bigfoot instead of Central Florida Bigfoot. And we were talking about maybe getting together this March and heading out in a few areas, checking out some stuff. So that's going to be good. I think Matt's interested. He's anxious to get out and check some areas in Kentucky. And I told him right now it's probably not a good time because they seem to not hang out much in the wintertime for some reason. And I don't blame them. I mean, if it was me and I lived in Kentucky in the woods, I'd be spending my time in a cave right now.
Now, next week, we're going to get back into educating and we're going to get back into some of our groundwork. We've been having a lot of these editorial shows lately, and tonight was like the beginning of the first show of the year. What do you know? Last January, we had Dr. Meldrum on, which was great.
Yeah. Great show. Love having Dr. Meldrum on.
Yeah. Corn Cob. Hello, Corn Cob say. Hey, that one Bigfoot looks too much like that Sylvanic guy when I asked him when he went into a fit and said the size don't match. Well, Cork, I actually found information from a very good source that the one that Daniel Falconer and I may have been Phil Poling that had said that head is a morph of Mr. Sylvanik, and we're talking about Todd Standing. I have good authority that actually that was a mannequin or a animatronic type of physical doll that did it. But I'm glad that you remembered the Sylvanik guy, because so many people forget about Sylvanik, the mysterious area where the Bigfoot roam that only the First Nations people knew. But Sylvanik is not a First Nations type of name or a Native American name. It's a Latin name. And it just so happens that the Toddster's mom's name is Sylvia. Is that a coincidence? Maybe, but
mysterious areas that only the First Nations people know.
Yeah. Well, that's funny because they didn't even know it. And you can only enter it through this little alcove, like a cave almost, that comes out on the other side of the mountain. And yeah.
Well, he did have one that I thought was really cool. The Bigfoot on the hillside that was next to the rock and it raises up. Okay, of course, it's just a short clip. That's all you see.
Yeah.
But I thought that was one of his best works there. Best works of fiction. It looked halfway believable. The rest of it, not so much.
Right.
Not so much.
But we have a lot on the burner, and for 2025, there's going to be some really big changes for the second half of 2025 if things go well. We're going to be taking the show on the road, hopefully. And guess what? Everybody, we're not going to charge a person a nickel to see any of it. This is the whole process we've been building on.
Grasshopper.
Yeah, I'm sorry, Grass. Grass has got the vid. And so does our good buddy Pat. He's got the vid.
Oh.
And
hang in there.
Yeah.
It's not as bad now as it used to be.
But I look at it this way. I look at every new year as an opportunity.
Oh, yeah.
So this year, there is a lot of opportunity that's on the horizon. It's depending on a few factors. John says, come to Jersey, bro, your roots. That's right. John Swan knows I was born in Teaneck, New Jersey. But there is a lot going on. There's a lot of plans. There's a lot of different ideas being floated.
Lori.
Thank you, Lori.
Super sticker. Thank you, Lori Gibbs. Thank you.
There is a lot on the cusp, and I don't want to give too much away because things aren't in concrete yet. Today I had a little revelation in my own of how to work the logistics of things. So and basically it's like, okay, what do you do now? Where do you go? Where do you start? What do you do? Well, now I know. Now it came to me. Yes, of course. Why didn't I think of that sooner? It was right there. The solution was right there in front of me. But sometimes you get so overwhelmed about so much that so we don't know exactly when this will start. May start in the fall, may not start till 2026, depending on how the cards fall on the table. You know, the old song, you got to know when to hold them. Well, we're gonna wait, to see how long it takes for them to fold. Once they fold, then we put our cards down, we win, and then we move forward. And then there's the logistics of getting some things personally done and then finally moving on to the actual operation itself. Put that question right up there.
Jay Fritz says, question, I've always wondered how these creatures handle biting and stinging insects like deer ticks, biting black flies, skeeters, etc., and be so stealth.
Well, let me answer that question. It's never a problem for the deer. It's never a problem for any of the other animals of the forest. When they're born into it, they're used to it.
Yep.
Well, it bothers us because we're not used to it.
Other primates too will groom each other and remove parasites.
Yeah. How can I often wonder? I mean, how can some of those Amazonian natives, can deal with all the stuff that they deal with, but they seem to get on just fine because they're born into it. They're little children running around with the bugs and the dicks and the venomous snakes and the spiders and whatever, and it doesn't bother them. And disease. And they seem to get on just fine.
Yeah. Yeah, one of my favorite shows are those guys living with the Mech tribe in Papua New Guinea. And they show those Mech guys, they just head off through the jungle, growed up areas and brushy areas. I was like, dude, right. I wouldn't walk through there. I'd have snake boots on.
Right.
And they go through there barefoot, think nothing about it. Just another stroll in the park for them. I'll have my knee-high snake boots on there.
And so, yeah, the whatever new programming, whatever new we're going to do, it is not going to be a pay-per-view. It's not going to be on Amazon. It's going to be right here on YouTube for y'all to see. There is some discussion about us, maybe starting a second channel to just feature that, or I don't know yet. We still haven't kind of fumbled that around with exactly that, but it's going to be something. And the beautiful thing is we're going to take the truth to the field, and it's going to be something that's not based upon trying to keep you in suspense. It's going to be based on telling you the truth, the raw, hard truth. My favorite type of documentaries are the raw ones, the ones that tell you the truth, not the ones that try to keep you in suspense every week. And they tend, The Curse of Oak Island. People love that show. Okay, I get it. I get the appeal. I've watched it. But after how many seasons, it's the same. Oh, look, we found this piece of wood. I'm sorry, I'm not excited about that.
Yeah.
Skinwalker Ranch, love the show, but okay, there's only some things. Okay, that's interesting, but any of the finds is, okay, it's just more questions.
Yeah, they got another show too, Mystery at Blind Frog Ranch. Yep. I've been watching that one, and man, it's just the same thing. Right. We keep digging around. Well, let's go dig over here. Okay.
Right.
We found this rock, and it may be some sort of Mayan temple. Oh, yeah, right. Looks like a rock to me. This is a special rock. But yeah, I'll tell you what though, I think they possibly may have had some sort of Bigfoot activity, either that or somebody in there messing with them.
Right.
One episode. So that got me thinking, interested.
But in the retrospect of a lot of things, it's not going to be a Hollywood product. I just read Steve's comment too.
Yeah.
And it is, and that's okay if you like those shows. Skinwalker Ranch is a guilty pleasure of mine.
Yeah.
I enjoy that show, but it's like, okay, I see things for what they are a lot of times, and unfortunately, I'm not going to give away the secret of what I'm writing for book 5 yet. Chris knows. And, but part of this TV show stuff kind of plays into that a bit too. And they take us for stupid. Hollywood takes us for such stupid people. If you think about it, they think that we can, and well, I guess for the most part, they're right. We can be bought off for a few cheap thrills to tune in next week. Right?
Yeah, that's it.
And that is not based on our intelligence. That's based on our human nature.
They play on curiosity.
Right. Right. They play on curiosity. They're not basing it on intelligence, but they're basing it upon human curiosity. Curiosity didn't kill the cat. Curiosity killed the Homo sapien. And that's what people got to remember too.
Boris likes ancient aliens. Yeah, that's pretty good. I like a lot of those mystery shows. Some of them are a little far-fetched,
but then again, you're looking at one side of the argument. And hey, I get that. I mean, I get that. I mean, you look at my Monster Quest, they tried looking at the other side of the argument, but the argument wasn't very good. Right? The arguments, I don't see where the land could support a large, primate when we're large primates. And the other guy, they came out with the other statement saying, well, these things existed, people would be seeing them. Hello, people have been seeing them for the last 200 years plus.
Yeah, those were pretty weak skeptical arguments there.
So you have that innate ability to circumvent, like, it was like the old argument.
Me too, Jen.
Yeah, I mean, Mountain Monsters was fine. You know where it's coming from.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, I enjoyed that's just entertainment. That's all that is. That's entertainment. And it was very entertaining.
Correct.
Who didn't get a laugh when those guys were looking for the Ohio Grassman? And I can't remember his name.
We're gonna get that Grassman.
He ends up rolling in the creek. I mean, it falls and rolls around in the creek. It was hilarious. Very entertaining. Can't fault him a bit for that. But I don't like the mockumentaries, the fake ones, like Bigfoot has been captured, or something. Those.
Well, there was 4 of them I can remember.
The mermaid. What was it?
Maybe it was 5. Let's see. There was the mermaid, the captured Bigfoot one, the Megalodon one, the Alaskan killer Yeti one, or the Russian killer Yeti one. And did we say the mermaid one already? We did. And there was 4 or 5 of them. And each time they had actors portraying scientists, claiming to be scientists.
Yeah,
that was huge because it led into so much disinformation going on out there. And it actually caused the mainstream media to burp a second too, because they were like, well, they are scientists. And then they're like, oh, no, it's okay. And they buried their story.
Laura said the Megalodon made me mad. So mad because I was in it to win it.
Yeah, and it was funny. I too was watching the Megalodon one, and then I not real.
Good show.
But I don't know who at Discovery thought that would have been a great idea to air these. I really don't. With no disclaimers on them.
Yeah.
I don't know who. I don't know. To me, that's insulting, right? You see, that's okay. It's okay to have a show like Missing 411 or a Finding Bigfoot, or even an Expedition Bigfoot, right?
Yeah.
Where they're trying to, where some of their conclusions may be completely in left field and off base, but at least they're real people talking to real people.
Yeah.
Right. When you have a show like The Beasts of the Bayou, and then one with that stupid Mississippi skunk ape video that wasn't even Mississippi, according to the show. You look at that, and they're just insulting our intelligence by lying to us. I don't mind you coming up to me and giving me your version of evidence, which may or may not hold relevance. That's fine with me, but don't lie to me. Don't lie to my face. That's a hoaxer. These are all hoaxes.
Yeah, Steve Curious Cryptid said Josh Gates once said nobody's as good at almost catching monsters as his show. The next year, he was replaced by mountain monsters, who were better at almost catching monsters. Josh Gates shows. He does some pretty good stuff, man. I enjoy them, but they're mostly, travel adventure. It's not really cryptozoology, but it's interesting. I listened to several of his interviews, man. I called in and talked to him on one, spoke to him, and he said, I asked him about the security when he goes into these places, out in the middle of nowhere. Does he have people with security, with guns and stuff to back him up? And he said most of the time, no, they just go in there and they're, totally vulnerable. I said, well, aren't you worried something's going to happen? He said, well, in that case, and maybe there'll be like a found footage video.
Right. And Corey Cobb trying to say the Boggy Creek was based on real. Yes, it was. A lot of the 70s and 80s stuff was based on real stuff.
Yeah.
And I almost dare say that the turning point for documentaries was the Geraldo special, Al Capone's Vault.
Oh yeah, I watched that. I watched that live, man. That was awesome. I was thinking, sitting on the edge of my seat, man, any minute they're gonna bust through this wall, and we're
let's see what's in it. And there's
millions of dollars and probably old cars.
Nothing.
Yeah, it was nothing.
It was empty. But that changed a lot with modern media at that point in time. Yeah. It was a long time before they had anything like that again.
Yeah. Well, I think we learned.
Jay, thank you, brother.
Jay Fritz gifted 5 memberships. Thank you, Jay. Appreciate you. You're too kind.
So important. And you look at all of this is relevant to what is portrayed on TV, because what happens is what's portrayed on TV gets into the minds of 75% to 80% of the Bigfoot community, quote unquote.
Right.
Who will think that
I want to look that up. What year was that? When Geraldo tried to bust in Al Capone.
All right, I'm going to take a guess off the top of my head. I'm going to say it was 83 or 84.
It was broadcast and syndication in April 21st, 1986. So
wow, a little later than I thought.
That was still, at that time, everybody was used to getting their TV.
And that makes a lot of sense too.
Not many, there were some VCRs, but it wasn't a a VCR wasn't common to every household. At that time in life, at that point in time, most people were still watching TV live, and then running to the bathroom during the commercial breaks because you couldn't pause it.
Right.
But I remember watching it live. I watched Geraldo. I thought it was going to be great, And it would have been, but they didn't find anything. That kind of sucked. But I think they went out on a limb for Geraldo on that one, and then it didn't pay off. So a lot of people were disappointed. I felt bad for him. But, sometimes you roll the dice and you get good numbers, and sometimes it comes up craps. So.
Oh, he got great numbers, but it was just a bad result.
Yeah.
And he took a lot of crap from him. I mean, they were, you understand here, they were expecting to have a whole nother hour of TV program going through some of the stuff that they found. Yeah. And that whole hour was like, now what do we do?
Yeah. Right. Yeah. And during the buildup, Geraldo said, well, we don't know what could be in there. Could be gold bars. It could be this. It could be, and everybody's like, oh my God, this is great. This is great.
But, and that killed the live documentary. And I gotta say, the last time there was there was a few other shows that dabbled with live type of investigations on network television. They were always on Halloween, and there was a few times where the Ghost Adventures crew with Zach Bagans did shows.
Yeah.
And they were okay, but they were nothing spectacular. And then there was another one with the Tennessee Wraith Chasers and Bishop Long and Psychic Chip Coffee, which who's recovering from a very bad illness. And I hope, Chip, you're getting better. But that really was kind of very undramatic. In that one, they were going to perform an exorcism or deliverance on the house of the original house of where the movie The Exorcism was based upon.
Yeah.
And it was very like, okay. And I knew it was coming because I'd been in that situation before. I was like, nothing exciting is going to happen. Right. But for some reason, the producers were stuck on this is going to be really exciting. And it was really okay. And they never did that again either. So after all those events, they stopped doing live events on Halloween now.
Yeah. There was one I watched, and I can't remember if it was Ghost Hunters or one of the other shows. They did a live one in that some sort of old abandoned hospital in Kentucky somewhere, maybe up in Louisville or something. I don't remember, but it's some kind of place where the people used to go when they had I don't know, what was it? Okay, brain freeze.
Well, Jennifer, let me say this. That's your opinion of him, but the guy, he may be unscrupulous. I've heard he can be not so nice of a person at times, but let's face it. If he is what you're saying and has no clue, like you're saying, he did pretty damned well because he's got a lot more money in the bank for somebody that has no clue than me and probably everybody else in this chat room combined. So he's doing something right. Let's give the devil its due, because that's when we kind of bite our nose to spite our faces. Sometimes he's doing something right, otherwise he wouldn't have that bank account with him. But and then somebody else, why do all the investigators whisper? The same reason why we whisper in the woods is because we're trying to hear what's going on out there, right?
Yeah.
Right. So in a paranormal investigation, people whisper and talk quietly because something might happen. And you got to have your ears, believe it or not. When you're in the woods, what's the number one sense you use? Your ears.
Yeah.
Right? Not our eyes. It's actually our ears. Oh, did you hear that? Oh, I heard a wood knock. Oh, I heard, I heard a vocalization. Oh, I heard some movement. Right? You don't see movement rarely. You don't see a Bigfoot rarely. You don't, see a wood knock. Right? So your ears, and that's why you whisper is to, because if you're talking, you're going to miss something. Danny, I didn't say right is measured by money. I said he's doing something right. Well, I guess, yeah,
Well,
right is measured by money. No, it's measured by success. He has a very successful TV show.
Yeah.
He's been on longer than Finding Bigfoot, longer than Finding Bigfoot and Mountain Monsters put together. Longer than, and then probably Finding Bigfoot, Expedition Bigfoot, and Mountain Monsters put together. He's been on longer than Ghost Hunters.
Right, we're just talking about Geraldo the reporter,
Right.
not Geraldo the political hack. Okay,
Right.
We don't do the politics side.
Right.
But Geraldo's been around a long time. So is John Stossel. John Stossel's been around a long time. I like him. He's done some good stuff. I don't agree with everything that he's done, but I don't agree with everything that anybody does. But yeah, old timers.
Yeah.
But yeah, Geraldo was pretty cool.
Yeah, I mean, I've heard some things, not so nice things about Zach Bagans, but personally, I've never met him. Don't have any interaction. Can't say. Again, I'm as a person who's has been an interpreter, an investigator, an interrogator, rather, not an interpreter, but an interrogator. You tend to navigate people for what they are sometimes. That's why I can get along with a lot of people. There's very few people I can't get along with, and the ones I can't get along with, then you really, because, if I can't get along with them, Gandhi probably would have kicked him in a swift kick to the, right. Great Rasha said something really funny. John Stossel is a great libertarian that should stay away from wrestlers. Of course, he's referring to when professional wrestler Dr. D. Dwight David Schultz smacked him in the face twice for asking him if wrestling's fake.
Yeah, there's some subject you don't want to breach, and professional wrestling was one of them.
Right. Because they'll, to this day, tell you it's not fake. It's just predetermined.
Well, it's a performance.
But it's not fake. They're still getting thrown to the ground. They're still taking shots. They're still taking it. Yeah. It's like a stuntman show, basically.
And I grew up watching the professional wrestling on TV. And then they would come to the local high school gymnasiums back in the 70s, and you could see, some of the big names in professional wrestling at that time. There's like Jerry Lawler and Tojo Yamamoto, Gypsy Joe, Dutch Mantel. I've seen all them guys wrestle here locally.
Yep.
And they're pretty cool. Of course, it was kind of odd though, because after these sworn enemies, after the wrestling match, they would all go to Wendy's and eat together.
Yeah, and if they got caught, there'd be hell to pay. But speaking of Dirty Dutch Mantel, I do watch his podcast quite frequently.
I've seen some of them. Yeah, it's pretty cool.
And his health has been kind of wavering a little bit towards the end of last year. I bet he was in the hospital and in rehab a couple of times last year for sepsis.
I remember watching one podcast. I think he was talking about Andre the Giant. And I did see Andre once, but oh my God, this was, if you've never seen Andre the Giant, well, of course you can't see him in person now, but if you had never seen Andre the Giant in person, it was like unbelievable, incredible. Guy was huge.
And who did I bump into? I bumped into Tony Atlas one day.
Tony Atlas.
And he had arms like this.
Yeah.
He had arms thicker than my legs.
Yeah.
Just tremendous.
Well, back, I think in the early 80s, they had some guys called Stan Lane and Steve Kern were the fabulous ones
Right.
And they were just everybody was crazy about them.
Yep, and they were managed by they wore the little bow ties and
Yes.
And their enemies was the Midnight Express, managed by Jim Cornette.
You would go to their wrestling matches at the high school gymnasiums, and there would always be these like 60 and 70-year-old women on the front row screaming to the top of their lungs. I mean, oh my, hilarious.
Yeah. But anyway, let's get back on point here. This whole Hollywood thing and Bigfoot really has built expectations for people. And I'm sorry, but the YouTube formula for Bigfoot research is to drag everybody in via clicks. I mean, I'm a very big user of YouTube as far as, watching videos and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And believe it or not, I don't watch a lot of Bigfoot stuff on YouTube. People ask me, well, why is that? Because it aggravates me.
Yeah.
It aggravates me for somebody like me who's been around now for how many years now? 27 years now doing this. It aggravates me to see people historically say the wrong things. And do it so cavalierly, like it doesn't matter. I felt that there is a history to the mystery and it should be preserved. But nobody today reads John Green. Nobody today reads Ivan Sanderson. Nobody today reads Don Hunter and Renee DeHinden's book. Nobody today reads any of that. You want the facts, they're behind me on the bookshelf because they were written by the people that were there, not by what people spin it to be, not what people want it to be. And that's part of this channel, is to set the record straight a lot of times. I feel that's very important. I feel that the only thing we have in this mystery is the truth. And when we deviate from that truth, then we go down a bad path, and that gives the skeptics or scofftics mostly ammunition to make us look ignorant.
Well, a lot of the stuff that I've seen Bigfoot related on YouTube is just recycled. There'll be old videos that they're claiming, oh, I just took this.
Right.
Or it's something where, a dude in a monkey suit from a gorilla suit from Halloween.
People can't even be original anymore.
Mm-hmm. No, they're recycling other people.
Thank you, John. I appreciate that. It just to me, that's what this channel is about getting the truth out. Damned be YouTube not liking us being more positive. They perceive as positive. Who the hell? They had once told Brent on the Tall Ones channel that, well, the reason why is, it'd be more helpful if you were a little more positive. Yeah. Do you tell that to the Holocaust channel?
Oh, man. Well, every now and then there is some positive stuff. That guy from California.
and I am so jealous of that, Jen. You got to hang with the great Tom Steenberg, who's the walking history file. He's been around the great ones for a long time, in the thick of things out there in British Columbia. One of the original, one of the Jacko investigators who can take you to the tunnel and the site where Jacko was allegedly taken.
Right. Well, I enjoy watching that stuff.
There are a lot of good channels out there. There's a lot of
Yeah.
channels out there on YouTube that foster the truth. The reason why I do promotional work and why we take out YouTube ads now is to get people that are just learning the truth. And it's inspiring. Even just last week, I got a note or a comment from a guy saying, hey, you know what? I'm so glad I found this channel. It's not so much that, we talk about Bigfoot, but the fact that we talk about Bigfoot in a truthful way where we're trying to parse the fiction, where we're trying to get to the meat of the matter. Because if you get to the meat of the matter, that's how you discover. That's where the truth will lie. If you have why do you think the woobats have never ever found anything except nonsense? Is because of what they believe in. Well, we can't record them without their permission. I remember when we first started this channel, remember? Hey, Bigfoot, I'm going to put this recorder down here. If you don't want to be recorded, just turn it off. What the hell, right? Right? Yeah, we're bordering on people's sanity. No offense, but that's pretty crazy when you think about it. It'd be like me going there, hey, Mr. Leprechaun, you don't even know. But but again, we go back to that word belief.
Well, I think a lot of those people had
so Poncho, let me his time standing has a spirit to him. As far as being hoaxer, I don't know. Poncho, just read my blogs, my old blogs. They're still there to this day. Go to my website, to the Hall of Shame page. It spells it all out for you. It shows you facts of how he is hoaxing and what he is. I mean, you think about it. Do you think the Muppet that he put out there that you could see kind of the felt, do you think that's real? How is he getting, how can you have like 2 layers of focus in a picture? You can't unless it's layered. That's why the face can be so clear and the stuff in front of it can be so clear, but the stuff behind them is blurry. It makes no sense. And then, we do the analysis on the photo and it shows that it's a layered picture.
Now, Lori says there have been some times Todd had hoax, but also times he had true encounters. That's the problem, Lori. When you hoax, you destroy your credibility, so nobody's going to believe you.
And how do you know he said true? My question is, Lori, how do you know he said true encounters?
We don't.
You don't. You only have his word. And what good is his word if he is hoaxing?
That's the problem.
Yeah. Remember, this is the man who said many, many years ago, back in 2004, 2005, when he first started, he's got bags full of hair, Sasquatch hair. And then when people asked him like a year later, well, whatever happened to that hair? You said you were going to get analyzed. Oh, somebody broke into my house and stole the hair. Okay. I'm going to break into a house just to steal the Bigfoot hair. What are you, pardon my French, what are you, effing crazy? But that's what people will believe.
Well, yeah, when we've been exposed as being a hoaxer, then anything you say or do from that point on is questionable.
And Lori, the places he researched, he took from another researcher. I forget his name at this time, but he had a real gripe saying.
Yeah, it was like a trap line or something. He took over.
Remember when he first started, it was Sylvanic, the magical, mystical area of Sylvanic. Whatever happened to that? People don't understand. When Todd started this whole thing, he was trying to create a Blair Witch type of found footage movie. And when that didn't kick off, he went on to another venture. He started, I want to protect them. But in actuality, if you actually read his lawsuits, had nothing to do with protecting them, had nothing to do with recognizing them as real. You know what the actual gist of those lawsuits were? He was suing Canada because they were violating his civil rights because he believed in Bigfoot, but the courts did not. And when the courts asked him to give evidence of Bigfoot, guess what Todd did? Showed nothing. Zip. Nothing. didn't even show his bullshit photos as evidence that Bigfoot exists. So what does that tell you? That's the real truth.
Well, yeah, if he would have showed fake evidence, he could have been brought up on charges for falsifying evidence.
Right. You
That
can't
would be a reason.
because there are plenty of witnesses that will come forward in a Canadian court. They won't come forth in public, a lot of them. And hold on. Let's not mince words. Todd did not get Les Stroud involved. It was the other way around. Les Stroud got Todd involved. Why? Because they're all Canadians. They're all one big family up there.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. Plus, Les Stroud did, mention a little disclaimer there. He did say that some of Todd's evidence had been questioned. So, I really I don't hold anything against Les Stroud for working with Todd Standing.
Lori Gibbs said, I know when I got deleted from the site due to saying Todd was fake. Can we talk about SMEMA? I don't know SMEMA. I don't know that term. Maybe if you want to write what SMEMA is.
Smyrna?
It says SMEMA. Oh, Smyrna. I'm sorry. It's
Smyrna?
I don't know what Smyrna is.
Smyrna. Okay. I'm gonna do a search. If I can come up with anything. Smyrna, New York. Respect the locals. Bigfoot Night Stroll is a tank top available on Amazon. That's all I come up with. Now I do know there's a Smyrna, Tennessee, but Smyrna, New York. Smyrna, New York, Bigfoot. Okay, in July 2002, residents of Smyrna, New York reported a possible sighting of a Bigfoot or Sasquatch at night. There have also been other sightings of the mysterious creature in the Adirondacks, with Whitehall being known as the Bigfoot capital of the Northeast.
That's our first dun of the year.
2002. So, yeah. It's been a while here.
Yep.
But let's see where Smyrna, New York is at.
Look at it this way. A lot of people wanted to condemn Les Stroud for, listen, my guess is it wasn't Les that said, oh, let's take Todd Standing. I'm sure it was his crew that put Todd Standing in front of him. Right. You gotta understand. Todd is talent. He's not he's not the production company. Everybody answers to the production company. Right. Les Stroud had his encounters prior to even mentioning the word Todd Standing. And again, I don't want to make this a bash Todd Standing, but what makes him an enigma is that he actually has some good ideas on Sasquatch behaviors and stuff like that. He has the basics down. And then you compare him to another blowhard, like the guy from California who has no knowledge whatsoever. He just thinks he knows, and he's wrong 90% of the time. And when he talks, he sounds disingenuous, whereas Todd is a little more polished. Right? And hey, Todd Standing was like the 5th or 6th guest on this show, and I asked him to explain himself.
Well, looking up, Steve, in Smyrna, New York, it's about 169 to 170 some miles west of Whitehall. So,
yeah, it's a few hours away.
Activity there. Yeah, I'm not too familiar with the activity there, but we'll look it up. Smyrna, New York. Oh, yeah. Yeah, Steve, Career Scripted, said, let's face it, Les knows that Woo sells. Really leaning into it now, too. Well, that's their way of creating mystery, especially for TV programming. Create mystery. They do the same thing on that.
It's also very easy that way to explain lack of evidence that they can't find.
Yeah.
Well, I can't find evidence. That's because it's some mystical creature. No, perhaps you just suck at getting evidence. Perhaps evidence is something you find very sparingly. And the number one piece of evidence we find is what? Footprints, which are normally accepted by science, but not in the case of Bigfoot or Sasquatch.
Yeah. Well, I think they did find evidence of a big snake or that at that Blind Frog Ranch program. But, they didn't really have anything to do with mystery. Just somebody let a big snake loose in the water there. Some sort of python. I don't know.
Well, there is an issue a lot of times that, let's say I'm Farmer XYZ. I'm Farmer Bob. And Farmer Bob has some Bigfoot activity on his farm. Do you really want to go to a Bigfoot researcher? Knowing that or thinking that they're going to bring a bunch of armed people onto my property. They're going to make it a media circus. They're going to, So I understand the trepidation of a lot of people.
Oh, but it's Blind Frog Ranch, Steve. Sorry. Blind Frog Ranch. It's something, mystery at Blind Frog Ranch.
Where every morning they have that cereal with that frog dig'em on it.
It's an offshoot of the Skinwalker Ranch thing. It's a little bit. I think it's a little bit north of Skinwalker Ranch, and so there's let's do Blind Frog Ranch.
Guys, I disagree. Bobo, decent researcher. You gotta understand, editing is a horrible thing for credibility.
Well, they have a problem. They had a problem with the Bigfoot show too, with Matt Moneymaker and them, because they would just go to a place and then camp out there for a day or two, and then all of a sudden, we think we heard Bigfoot activity. Yep, they're here. Well, next week we're going to be 400 miles away over there. That's just an endless pursuit of.
Yeah, you got to understand is, why do you think I haven't been on a lot of programming as far as like serial TV shows? Why?
They're not about getting to the truth. They're about entertainment and creating curiosity for people to watch.
And I've turned down a couple of shows that actually wanted me. Nope, it's going to hurt my credibility. Sorry, thank you, not. And one of those shows was the springboard for finding Bigfoot.
Yeah. Do you come to British Columbia? We have Bigfoot. Yes, honeybee. I would love to go to British Columbia.
Let me give you. I was offered to do 2 shows. The $1 Million Bigfoot Bounty. I was offered to do that show. Turned it down. Withdrew. I was offered to do the Bob Saget show when Bob Saget was alive. I wasn't comfortable with a comedian being the host of a show. Turned it down, wouldn't do it. So and it turned out that the Saget show grabbed Bobo and Matt and Cliff Barrickman, and that was the springboard for finding Bigfoot. Like, wow. Yeah. That could have been me there too. But I turned it down because I was not comfortable with a comedian running a TV show. Far be it from me. Just my gut feeling. And sometimes you got to go with the gut. Was it the right call? Was it the wrong call? Well, considering what happened on season 1's editing of Finding Bigfoot, I don't consider it a mistake at all. Maybe in the long term, it all worked out for them for the most part.
Mm-hmm.
But still, none of them can retire on what they made from Finding Bigfoot. They still have to go out and find work. They still have to do jobs. What's the point? What was the point? What was the point was Cliff had some really great experiences. They got to go to China. They got to go to Malaysia. They got to look for the orangutan deck. They got to look for the Yeren. They got to go to all over the country. So in a way, it was good, but they didn't get to spend a hell of a lot of time because of the production schedule. And I've seen that show in action a couple of times. And I know how it is. Actually, 3 times now I think about it. So Grant, Cliff seemed like the only logical person. That's because that's how they painted it. Yeah. Remember, they painted. When I did the Loch Ness special, in 2011, I did The Truth Behind the Loch Ness Monster for NatGeo. And they were very clear when I started doing it that, we just want to keep you positive and keep you in the positive and to keep research going. So I was trying to be as generic as possible. The fact is that I believe that the Loch Ness Monster likely was either a sturgeon or perhaps maybe an eel or two that had gotten into the loch via the Caledonian Canal in northern Scotland. And but I still had to keep my attitude going that, listen, we need to explain what's going on here. And if you hear me, I never say the Loch Ness Monster's real. I never say any of that. I say the need and people who had sightings and be there and interview them. And it was great to go to that historical 70s site where they did the big sonar sweeps of the loch and stuff like that back in the 70s that made all the news. But there was a point where a gentleman who was the groundskeeper of Alduri Castle, a gentleman by the name of, last name was Preston, who had come forth with this picture. And he would not let the production team use that picture unless they paid him. And I looked at the picture, I go, don't pay him. Don't pay him. It's not real. Don't pay him. And they did. And they interviewed him. And I got talking with some of the staff, and particularly the chef, who says, it's bullshit. He says, I think that's a reflection. So I waited the next morning on my off day. And sure enough, I take a picture of the exact same thing that Preston had taken. Right. I took a wider photo, which showed the copper flashing on the roof, which the sun got to the right area, reflected off the copper roof, reflected down onto the loch, and that's what Preston took a picture of. Right. So when I showed that to the producer, or to the director, he's like, oh my God. So I gave him a copy of it, and they interviewed me. How I recreated the photo, what time I recreated the photo, and said, this is a reflection. There's a copper roof. And they had me out in the loch pointing to the right. Well, it gets to that all got put on the cutting room floor. Right. And they had some scientists say, well, I don't see any reflecting things that could reflect like a copper roof or anything in the picture. I believe it's boats. So they put a guy, an academic, who's completely wrong because he wasn't there. Yeah, you don't see it the copper roof in the picture because it's zoomed in or it's been cropped. Yeah. Yeah, right? The house is right there. Take a look at this picture. Does that change
in the background? Right?
Does that change your mind now? But no, my answer gets put on the cutting room floor, which was the truth. Right.
Well, yeah, that was edited for entertainment value. Sure.
Well, what it came down to is they didn't want the pro Loch Ness guy to show any doubts. So they kept me out of the argument. Yeah. Right. Which is really irritating, because if I'm leading this expedition and this guy comes forward with a picture, why am I not fucking front and center for it?
Right.
Right? Made no sense. Right?
Well, yeah, it does. It does. They edited that portion out because it made more entertainment to keep people curious. Oh, that could be something, you know.
And then 3 years later, the boat captain tries to pull a hoax, taking a picture of the recreation prop, which he had taken while we had the prop in the water. Right? And I have a picture of the friggin' same one, was the same picture.
Oh,
Right? And he puts it out there. Oh, I found the Loch, I've got proof the Loch Ness monster is out there now. Look. And I turn around, I go, that's the prop we used.
yeah.
So 3 years later, I get interviewed by the paper calling this guy out for lying about what he was taking a picture of, and he went away after that.
Why do people do that? I mean, was he just looking for attention, you think?
No, he runs a sightseeing boat tour for Loch Ness monster.
Oh, money.
Money, 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 money.
Yeah. Need some more tickets booked on that sightseeing tour.
All about the money.
Yeah. Ah, well. Loch Ness monster or champ? Yeah, I'll tell you what, I'd like to see Steve do some champ investigations.
Not my ball
After
of
we get
wax.
this Bigfoot stuff solved.
Not my ball of wax. Nah, when we get the Bigfoot thing solved, I'm off to crop circles.
Well, if we can get this Bigfoot mystery solved, bring one in, I think maybe then we could get the funding and we could go find a Yeti or then go find a Yaren. That would be a good worldwide tour, bringing this stuff in. Of course, you got to bring in the first one first to show everybody you can do it.
Right.
I believe we could get some sponsors then. I'm out of tea.
You're out of tea and you're out of ski.
I'm out of tea, yes, and no ski. Maybe the roads will thaw out tomorrow. I doubt it.
Well, Chris, I think we're going to kick off at 10:30 tonight. Just because it's kind of a break up.
Yeah, there's not a lot.
Honeybee, hello. There's a question in chat. Has there ever been a dead one found? No, at least not that anybody. If not, do you think they would be inbreeding an issue as they're closer to humans? Good question. Real good question. Yeah. Is well, the problem is we just don't know. There is not enough information on the breeding population of a Sasquatch.
Right.
Chimpanzees and gorillas and other primates have the habit of the males. Just like, well, when you think about it, us too, right? What do we do when we become young adults? We go off to school. We leave the family nest and we move out into the world. Well, that's what all when primates turn into adulthood, when they move into that breeding age in adulthood, they move out of the family unit. They become solitary males and they go in search of their own family units. Right. That is instinctual, but it's also a way to avoid interbreeding.
Yeah, that thing could be a problem if there was a very small breeding population.
Roker Gyepta has a good question too, if you want to put that one up. Hello, and some of our new folks here that are hanging out in the nether.
What's the goal for solved video body?
Well, it likely it would probably have to be a DNA of some sort with some proof where it came from. Not just a vial of DNA saying that. Although it would go far, people say, oh, well, they'll just say, oh, maybe. But I think for a lot, it'll go a long way. It'll pique the curiosity. That's all they need. Remember, we just need something to tip the scale a little bit. And if we come up with a good DNA sample, that tips the scale, right? But if somebody was to discover a body of said one and take out a part of that body or parts of that body, that would bring it to fruition pretty quickly. Yeah. Without having, if they didn't have the means to take the entire carcass out of the environment.
Yeah, that's the ultimate goal. Poncho. Find one that's already expired due to either health reasons or accident, fell off a bluff, fell off a gorge, and bring in that rascal, and that'll take care of it. I don't think a photograph or a video is going to solve anything. You got to have. There's got to be a type specimen on file.
Anybody has photographs, there's going to be somebody in the crowd saying it's fake, whether it's real or not.
Yeah, AI. It's AI. They'll say it.
It's AI. It's this. It's that. It's
You never know. 2025 could be the year.
So I would caution saying they don't necessarily need a body. What they need is a body part. If somebody comes in with a head, a hand, a foot.
Yeah, anything.
Right. Say you bring in a foot. Well, here is this inline toed foot with a mid-tarsal break, which is one of the anomalies that a Bigfoot has, because the mid-tarsus is more indicative of something that's arboreal than on the ground. Yeah. But it has inline toes, which means it doesn't have that opposable toe, which is arboreal as well. It will, if somebody bringing the foot, they can take a DNA sample from that. They can study the bones, the structure, all of that. That's going to be pretty hard to say that it's not a Bigfoot.
Yeah. Yeah. So if you're out tromping around in the woods and trekking, doing a hiking trail, and you run up on a dead Sasquatch body just laying there, if you can't throw it on your back and carry it out, at least hack off a piece of it and bring it out with you.
Right.
Because you don't know if it's going to be there when you go back.
Right.
You go back with a team to recover the body, and there's no
find
body.
Some, and if you don't have a knife or a good enough knife, find some good flaking stone, smash it together, and you get that sharp edge stone, and you can cut. And that will lead me to my last point. That there was a recent news episode I caught that, guess what they found? We weren't Homo sapiens, Homo erectus, or any of our little Homo tribe. We're not the first ones to use tools. The earliest being that used tools was the Paranthropus.
Was that from the Lucy site?
No, because Lucy is an Australopithecus afarensis. Okay. Right? She's an Australopithecine. Mm-hmm. And it's amazing. I've got a lot of the terminology down now. I'm so happy about that. It's amazing when you learn stuff. But no, they were saying Paranthropus, actually, the earliest signs of tools they had came from a Paranthropus. And what they were doing was they were smashing stones together to create sharp edge stones.
Right.
And they had found mastodont bones that had cut marks on them.
Ah.
So that's how they proved that they were using those rocks. They thought, but they couldn't prove one without the other.
Right.
But when they found the bones cut with the mastodon bones.
Yeah.
Right. So
very cool.
What they believe is that either Homo habilis or one of the Homo species or Australopithecus, afarensis, looked over and saw the Paranthropus using that as a tool and started to imitate them.
Yeah.
But the problem is the Homo sapien, the Homo group, got so good at it that they overcame it and innovated it even more.
Right.
Right. But it was Paranthropus that gave them the idea.
Well, isn't it really cool how everything we thought we knew about our own history has turned out to be turned upside down the past, I don't know, decade or so. Everything we thought we knew has been thrown out the window. And then now, as it turns out, well, guess what? Homo sapiens weren't the first one to use tools either.
Right.
It's so cool.
Homo sapiens weren't the first ones to use fire. That was Homo erectus. Just amazing. Corn Cob said, how are they in Australia? Well, they're the same, described as the same type of being. Of course, Australia was part of Pangea when all the continents were squished together.
Yeah.
So it'd be very, very understandable how a Bigfoot type of hominin got into the down under. And the Yowie are described very similarly to that of a Sasquatch or in Canada or a Bigfoot in the United States. So there is no difference per se. They howl, they have the same hair, they smell, they do all the things, and they're called Yowies in Australia. Or the Yahoos. Sometimes they call them Yahoos.
Well, is it New Zealand where they have the
thylacine?
Yeah, the Tasmanian.
The thylacine, or the Tasmanian, aka the Tasmanian tiger. But watching some of this science, it's amazing now. They have the technology now to bring back the mastodon, the mammoth. I'm sorry. It wasn't a mastodon in Africa where it was a mastodon bone, not a mastodon. Or I'm sorry, a mammoth bone, not a mastodon.
I'd like to see the mammoth brought back.
Right. They can bring back the mammoth. Because they had found these glacial bodies, where these bodies were intact, and they had gotten workable DNA off them because the body had been frozen like a TV dinner for thousands of years. Jen, you are correct. In Hawaii, it makes sense that no credible report has come out of Hawaii because it's a volcanic island. It wasn't part of Pangea. It sprouted up many years later after the continental drift and all of that. So, but they can also now clone a saber-toothed cat.
I don't know if they should try that. They should leave those alone.
Oh, why not? Because you realize there were several dozen species of saber-toothed cat. We all think of the saber-toothed tiger, the big one, but there was a lot of versions of them that were smaller.
Yeah.
And just amazing. And should we bring them back? I mean, would it upset the ecological balance? Well, I don't think they're bringing them. They mean to bring them back as a workable population. I think they mean to bring them back for study purposes and okay, now we have this mammoth. We can see how it eats. We can see how it mingles with other mammoths. We can see what, I mean, I would be the first one to get on board to say, just out of curiosity, let's do it.
Yeah.
I think it would be awesome. I wish we could do that with the thylacine. I don't know if we have workable DNA to bring back the Tasmanian tiger because there's something that went extinct. But there are people, the truly Darwinistic people that will say, well, they were meant to go extinct, and that's why we shouldn't bring them back.
Not those. No, we did those.
We hunted them to extinction. But the Homo sapiens hunted the mastodons and the mammoths to extinction, and they hunted the saber-toothed cats to extinction as well. The Homo sapiens were great at wiping out species of animals, and that's not something that modern human alone has done, but it is something that we have done since our existence. It's the way we are.
If they would have took up farming, instead of cows, they could have raised woolly mammoths. That would have probably been sustainable, but as it turned out, no, they just kill them all.
Lori, I would say this about George Norrie. He has had a lot of people that do not belong on his show. George Norrie has never had Steve Kulls on a show, but he's had Tom Biscardi on a few times.
Yeah.
Right. So these guys are just, Art Bell had a little more, I think, to do with the show production than George Norrie did. George Norrie kind of came in after the fact, and there was already this process in play. But who knows? I don't know the inner workings of that particular show. It's entertaining, it's interesting, but 9 times out of 10, it's a lot of bullshine on there. Occasionally, you'll get Eric Altman on it, and that's pretty decent. There was another question. Nick had asked a legal question. Steve, wouldn't it be different according to state law about one-party approval versus two-party approval for recording conversations? That is correct. And when it comes to recording conversations, regardless of whether it's on the phone or not, in a state like New York where there is one-party consent, as long as you're part of the conversation, you can record it. It doesn't matter if there's one person, 2 people, 50 people there. As long as you're part of that conversation, you can record it. Where it becomes dicey is if I make a phone call, say to California, which is a 2-party state, and I record that conversation, that could be thrown out of court on a legality because California is a 2-party consent state. So in other words, whoever is on that phone call needs to be informed that you're recording the phone call. So, or if you're recording them in a pocket per se, you need to inform that you're recording the conversation. And it always defaults to the one that has the higher cause of action. So if you're doing an interstate phone call, it always defaults to the state that has the more requirements, such as the 2-party. And that is not true, Grant. You can only record it. As a matter of fact, in public, you can't record it. Many states, for example, if I put a recorder out, say in a subway car, is that legal or not? Anybody have a question? Anybody have an answer to that one? So answer that question. If I put, say, a recorder on a subway and leave it there and record, it's in public, and I leave it to record there, is that legal or not?
I would think it would be.
It's not.
But if you're in a public space, there's no reasonable expectation.
Nope. There's reasonable expectation of privacy in conversation. Because one can whisper, one can talk like this, right? If you're in, there's something called eavesdropping, right? And there's eavesdropping laws. If you're not part of that conversation, you have no right to record it. Right? If a person knows it's there, that's fine. Again, that goes back to 1-party consent. If you're in California, absolutely not. You have to have at least all the parties involved in the conversation know that you're recording. So that's what they call 1-party versus 2-party.
Well, I learned something new.
That's why in New York State, and this was a big fallout I had with one of our members here who kind of went off the rails, saying, well, I got a friend of mine who's left 20 trail cameras up in the state park. No, you didn't, because it's illegal to leave a trail camera in a state park in New York. They would be confiscated. The reason being is game cameras can record conversations. That would be considered electronic eavesdropping. You have no right to that conversation unless you're a party involved in it.
Yeah,
and that's
also, you probably have to get a permit for put a game cam on public land,
right? Yep.
But now private lands, that's completely different.
Correct. Correct. If you're on private property, all games are. You can do whatever you want on your own private property. Yeah. But on public land, you cannot record conversations unless, in New York State anyway, unless you are part of that or 1-party consent states, unless you're part of that conversation. Otherwise, it's considered electronic eavesdropping. And when that whole Monica Lewinsky, Linda Tripp thing happened back in the 90s, with the whole Bill Clinton, Monica Lewinsky thing. Linda Tripp was looking at a possible criminal sentence because she had made one of the recordings in Maryland, and Monica did not know about it. And Maryland is a 2-party consent state.
Oh man!
So that could have gotten into trouble, but
too much headache.
Yeah. And that is something I directly worked with for years as a private investigator.
Yeah.
Because people would come to me too. Oh, I secretly taped a recording of my lover and her wife. Well, the video is fine, but the audio, well, in that case, if it's in a private residence, that's fine. If it's in a car you own, that's fine. Your name on the title to the car, okay, that's fine. That's your vehicle. But if it's in a public, if you put it in your wife's car and it's just titled to her name, that's electronic eavesdropping. It's very technical stuff. Very technical stuff. That's why Apple is settled a multi-billion-dollar suit for Siri eavesdropping on people's conversations so they can shuffle the ads. Right? They would say certain keywords that Siri would pick up on because Siri would always be listening. And there's been cases where Apple has provided some of that eavesdropping to law enforcement.
Yeah.
And that is completely against the law. Completely.
Well, you know, at one time, my boys got me one of those Google Home things for Christmas one year. And I used it for a little while. Then I realized, you know, while I was looking on my Google Chrome, stuff that we were talking about in the kitchen where this thing was at was showing up ads on my computer screen.
Sure.
Like we were talking about want to get a pizza or something later at Pizza Hut. Next thing I know, there would be Pizza Hut coupons pop up on my.
Right.
So that's kind of, you know.
There's a lot. There's a lot going on. One of the, you know, tech has been out of control lately, and they've been really screwing with people. I'll give you a great example. There is a new lawsuit, class action lawsuit, against the company Honey. Honey is that discount service where you just go to Honey and see if you get the lowest price on something. And if not, Honey will throw in the discount code and get you a lower price. Okay. The problem is a lot of the big channels that promoted Honey, they recently discovered it in their own little online investigation that anytime it asked for a Honey code, when it either got a code or rejected the code, the referral link changed to that of Honey. So Honey would get the commission from the retailer, not the person referring them. Huh. So they were basically stealing commissions from people that were advertising their product. Right? At least that's the allegation.
Yeah.
And just FYI, Honey is owned by PayPal. So
imagine that.
Yeah, but yeah, so there's a class action lawsuit going on that. I noticed that going on. So I'm very up on what's going on as far as, like I said, I watch a lot of YouTube and a lot of things like, oh, that's interesting. On my feeds because I have different interests. That's how I know about these things about stone tools and stuff like that. And
yeah. I had seen something about that, but I didn't really get into it that much.
Yeah, very. That's like those sneaky bad. Yeah, the guy actually showed it because he signed up for a Honey affiliate account, and he showed how it worked. And see, if I click on it and it gives me a Honey code where I get a discount, look, it changed the referral link to Honey. Took my referral link away. And even if it rejected and didn't have a code, it still changed the referral code back to Honey. So I'm directing the traffic here to this site, and Honey is wiping out my commission and sending it to them instead.
Right. Well, that's pretty smart. Pretty sneaky. Making that money. Well, I'm about ready to get off here and go get me a glass of tea, Steve.
Yes, sir.
Really,
All
really.
right, folks. Chris, do your thing so we get out of here tonight.
I want to thank everybody for joining us tonight. We appreciate you guys. Thank you so much. I did see a few new names in there. If you hadn't subscribed to the channel, please do that. That's the best way you can support the channel. Hit that subscribe button. If you can, we would be so tickled if you could leave a like. It helps out with this algorithm thing. Okay, whatever this, I don't know what it does. They tell me we need to get likes and we need to get subscribers.
It's magic.
It doesn't cost anything, guys. So just help us out if you can. We appreciate you guys. Thank you so much for joining us.
Right. And folks, thanks to all the new folks in here. Welcome aboard. And if you happen to be listening to this on one of our audio channels, make sure you check them over to the YouTube channel. Check us out, youtube.com/Squatch-D-TV. And folks, on behalf of me and everybody, happy flipping New Year. It's going to be a good year. And we like I said, this year we got a lot of analysis coming up. We got a lot of good stories. We got some education coming up as well. And boy, it's going to be a fun year. And you know what? Just sitting here for the last hour and 50 minutes or so talking about this has now inspired me for the shows going forward. We will be on this Wednesday night. We will not be on this Friday night. I got one more double. I probably the Friday night thing may not go on for a little bit yet still. But I will say this, we'll be on Wednesday night for our Wednesday night hour-long show. And who knows, we may have a little contest in there to keep us on for an extra hour. We'll see. But folks, be safe, be healthy. God bless. Keep on squatching. We'll see you all here Wednesday night, 9 p.m. Eastern, right here on Squatch-D TV. And we'll catch you all a little bit.
We thank you for being here with us on Squatch-D TV. If you haven't taken the time yet, please hit that like button and subscribe to the channel. And oh yes, hit that notification bell too. We don't want you to miss anything. If you really like our content, you should consider becoming a member. And it's really inexpensive and a great way to support not only the show, but honest Bigfoot research. Everyone have a great week. Be safe and God bless. We will see you all here next time on Squatch-D TV. Keep on squatching.